I never thought I'd be sitting here, pouring my heart out about the worst mistake of my life. But here I am, Carl Reeves, once the proud owner of Desert Dreams Tours, now, well, I'm not sure what I am anymore. A changed man? A redemption story in progress? You be the judge. You know that feeling when you realize you become the villain in someone else's love story. That gut-wrenching moment when you look in the mirror and don't recognize the person staring back. That's where my story begins. And let me tell you, it's a long, winding road to the darkest parts of my soul. It was supposed to be just another day at the office. The desert sun was beating down on the windows of my plush corner office, and I was nursing my third cup of coffee when they walked in. Malik, our star tour guide, all 6 feet of him radiating passion for the dunes and canyons he called home. And Sarah, our new photographer, her eyes sparkling with the same fire I once had. I should have been happy. Here were 2 people who could take my company to new heights. Instead, I felt a knot in my stomach that would grow into something ugly and destructive. You see, I watched them fall in love. It happened slowly, then all at once. Shared glances over map tables, lingering touches as they passed each other equipment, hushed conversations about sustainable tourism that left them both glowing. And with each moment, I felt myself fading into the background of my own company. It's just business, I told myself as I began to meddle. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. It was about control, about maintaining my grip on the empire I'd built. I started small, changing schedules to keep them apart, reassigning routes so they wouldn't work together as often. I took a perverse pride in these little victories, each one a small wound to their budding relationship. I remember the day I overheard Malik talking to Sarah about a sunset tour he was planning. The excitement in his voice, the way Sarah's eyes lit up, it made my blood boil. So, I did what I thought was clever at the time. I scheduled an important client meeting for Sarah at the exact time of the tour. The disappointment on their faces when I broke the news? I hate to admit it, but it gave me a rush. But it wasn't enough. Their love was like a desert bloom, resilient, beautiful, and seemingly immune to the harsh conditions I tried to create. So I escalated. I started inviting attractive single clients to join Malik's tours, always making sure to mention how single and available he was. I'd watch with a mixture of anticipation and disgust as these women flirted with him, hoping to see a crack in Sarah's composure. One day, I overheard Sarah confronting Malik about a particularly forward client. "I saw how she was looking at you," Sarah said, her voice tight with emotion. Malik tried to reassure her, but I could see the seed of doubt I'd planted starting to grow. I should have felt ashamed, but instead, I felt triumphant. My manipulations weren't limited to the office. Oh no! I brought this poison home with me. My son, Jake, had always looked up to Malik. He was considering following in Malik's footsteps, talking about ecotourism and sustainability. It made my skin crawl. "Son," I said one night over dinner, my voice dripping with false concern, "I hate to be the one to tell you this, but Malik, well, he's not the role model you think he is." I spun a tale of Malik's supposed indiscretions, painting him as a womanizer who was stringing Sarah along. The look of disappointment on Jake's face should have stopped me in my tracks. Instead, it fueled me. I had protected my son from Malik's influence, or so I told myself. But Jake, bless his heart, he saw right through me. "Dad," he said, his voice heavy with disappointment, "what happened to you?" This isn't the man who taught me about integrity and honesty. His words stung, but I brushed them off. I was too far gone, too invested in my narrative of protecting my business, my legacy. As the weeks turned into months, I became more and more brazen in my attempts to drive a wedge between Malik and Sarah. I started spreading rumors among the staff, little whispers here and there. Did you see how close Malik and that new intern were standing? Or I heard Sarah's ex is back in town, and they've been meeting up. I watched with a twisted sense of satisfaction as these seeds of doubt took root. There was a company party, a celebration of our most successful year to date. I made sure the bar was well stocked and the music was loud. As the night wore on, I saw my opportunity. Sarah had stepped away, and Malik was alone at the bar. I sent over Amber, a new hire who had made no secret of her attraction to Malik. Why don't you show Amber some of those dance moves you're famous for? I suggested, clapping Malik on the back. From across the room, I watched as Sarah returned, her face falling as she saw Malik and Amber on the dance floor. It wasn't anything inappropriate, but in that moment, fueled by alcohol and the doubts I'd been planting, it looked like so much more. The argument that followed, the tears, the raised voices barely concealed by the music. It was all my doing, and I reveled in it. But my crowning achievement, the move that I thought would finally break them apart for good, came when I decided to send Sarah on a solo expedition to Rattlesnake Canyon, one of the most treacherous parts of the desert, away from Malik, away from safety. It's a great opportunity, I lied, my words dripping with false encouragement. Think of the photos you'll capture. This could really launch your career to the next level. I painted a picture of fame and fortune, knowing full well the dangers that awaited her. The look of excitement on her face, the proud smile Malik gave her, they haunt me still. I had set in motion events that would nearly destroy 3 lives, all because I couldn't bear to see others succeed where I had become complacent. When the call came in that Sarah was missing, presumed injured in a fall, the world stopped spinning. Malik's face, usually so full of life, crumpled in anguish. Without a word, he grabbed his gear and headed out, determination etched into every line of his body. I sat in my office, the weight of what I'd done crushing me. Hours ticked by, each one an eternity. The desert, once my playground, had become a merciless judge, and I was on trial. Every manipulative action, every lie, every moment of petty triumph came rushing back, and for the first time, I saw myself for what I truly was. Then, a miracle, Malik found her, but their ordeal was far from over. A vicious sandstorm was rolling in, threatening to erase them both from existence. In that moment, something in me broke, or maybe it was finally fixed. I mobilized every resource, called in every favor. My prayers, long forgotten, came rushing back as I begged for their safety. The rescue operation was a blur of frantic calls, helicopter rotors, and agonizing waits. When they were finally brought in, battered, exhausted, but alive, I saw in their eyes a strength I had forgotten existed. A love that had not only survived, but grown stronger in the face of adversity I had created. Malik, his face etched with exhaustion, looked at me with a mixture of gratitude and suspicion. "Thank you for the rescue," he said, his voice hoarse. "But I can't help feeling like there's more to this story." Sarah, barely conscious, reached for his hand, and the simple gesture spoke volumes about the bond one had failed to break. The shame was overwhelming, but it was also the beginning of something new. As Sarah recovered in the hospital, I faced the consequences of my actions, the investigations, the potential lawsuits, the damage to my reputation. They all paled in comparison to the harm I had nearly caused. My son, Jake, came to see me in my office a few days later. "Dad," he said, his voice a mixture of disappointment and hope, "it's time to make this right." And he was right. It was time to face the music, to own up to my actions, and to try to make amends for the damage I'd done. That's when I made the hardest and best decision of my life. I called Malik and Sarah into my office, my heart pounding as they took their seats across from me. "I owe you both an apology," I began, my voice shaking. "But more than that, I owe you the truth, And so I confessed. Every manipulation, every lie, every petty action designed to drive them apart. I watched as their expressions changed from confusion to anger to disbelief. When I finished, the silence was deafening. Then Malik spoke, his voice tight with controlled anger. Why, Carl? Why would you do this to us? And for the first time, I was honest with them and with myself. I talked about my fears of becoming irrelevant, of losing control of the company I'd built. I talked about my jealousy of their passion, their love, their vision for the future. To my surprise, it was Sarah who spoke next. What you did was unforgivable, she said, her voice firm. But the fact that you're owning up to it, it's a start. And then I did something I never thought I'd do. I offered them not just my deepest apologies, but my full support to start their own agency. An agency that would respect the desert and its people in ways I had long since forgotten. The look of shock on their faces was almost comical. You're serious? Malik asked, disbelief evident in his voice. I nodded, pushing across the desk a folder containing the paperwork to make it happen. It's time for a change, I said, and you two are the ones to make it. Watching their dreams take flight over the next few months, I found a kind of peace I never knew existed. I became their consultant, offering my experience but letting them lead. And in doing so, I learned more about true success than I had in all my years of chasing profits. Today, as I look back, I barely recognize the man I was. That Carl, consumed by jealousy and fear, feels like a stranger. I've learned that real success isn't measured in dollars or power, but in the lives we touch and the positive change we create. Malik and Sarah taught me that love for a person, for a place, for an ideal, has the power to transform not just our lives, but the world around us. They showed me it's never too late to change, to make amends, to do what's right. Their agency, Desert Heart Adventures, is thriving now. They're changing the way people see and interact with the desert, promoting sustainability and respect for the land and its people. And me? I'm still here, still learning, still trying to be better every day. So, I ask you, have you ever found yourself on the wrong side of someone else's happiness? Have you ever had to face the consequences of your worst decisions? How did you find your way back to the person you want to be? Share your stories in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We've got a whole playlist of redemption stories that might just change your perspective on life. Remember, it's never too late to rewrite your own story. Even if, like me, you've been the villain for far too long,